I want you to talk to this reality of, even if you're not saving any money, even if you don't have a retirement plan, even if you're like, there's no way I can afford to pay for premiums for a whole life policy, how would you go back and coach yourself up, knowing what you know now at a very simplistic, high level, to counter that thought process and almost implore you to look?
Believe they can buy as much life insurance as they can afford. Whether you start a whole life policy or not, one of the things that also is really important is understanding your lifetime economic value is a real number whether you plan for it or not. Lifetime economic value is essentially what the insurance company would determine how much death benefit you would qualify for. And just for easy numbers, you would multiply your income times your number of working years that you have left. And that's roughly what they're going to be willing to insure you for, which pushes back on a common misconception with life insurance. Most people believe they can buy as much life insurance as they can afford. That is not true. You can only buy as much life insurance as the insurance company is willing to offer you. And so they use actuarial science to determine what that number is, and that represents your future value of your present.
Welcome to the Cash Flow Legends podcast with your hosts Nate, Brandon, and Brock. Remember, our insights are not direct financial advice, so consult with your financial team before making any decisions based on the topics discussed in this show.
Good morning, Facebook. Good morning, anybody else that watches later. Good afternoon, whatever time it is you watch this. Nate, you and I were recording with Brock a podcast this morning, and we were just talking about the things that don't often get discussed, or the questions that don't often, I would even say maybe often is not the right word, hardly ever get asked about money. And so we're going to have an opportunity for anybody who wants to come down to one of our local events. We call it Pizza and Perspective. That's this Saturday from 9 to 12. This Saturday would be the 31st at the workshop. Nate, how many spots do we have left, roughly?
About 10.
Okay. And a lot of times people see this and go, oh, yeah, I was going to register, and it fills up real quick. You can find that registration link on our Facebook page. You can find it in former or previous videos we've done.
You can
go
message
to our website.
us. Yeah. There's all kinds of different ways you can
go to our website. If Nate's feeling spunky, maybe he'll drop it in the comments while we're chatting. Also, you can always go to our website and go to events at www.unlimitedlifeconcepts.com and see any new events coming up and register there.
Ask and you shall receive.
Boom. So
there it is.
Thanks, Nate. So if you've been interested in coming to one of these and you're like, what are y'all really doing? We're talking about the truths about money, and you're going to have a culmination of a couple of different experience levels or mindsets in the room. You're going to have people who are already practicing what we teach and live, becoming your own banker and the infinite banking concept. You're going to have some who've just started, some who've been doing it quite a while. And then you're going to also have some there that are interested in learning more or curious what we've been talking about for the last 8 years, who are just going to attend more out of interest and really see what it's about. And all of those are great, because what we spend a whole lot of time getting to do, Nate, is helping people get real clear on what they think they understand about how money's moving through their life. Because it does not matter what we know until somebody else understands what it means to them. And so
yeah, it's important. It's important for whoever you're working with, whatever advisor you're working with. It's important for them to be extremely interested in what brings you the most peace of mind in your life.
Yeah. And Nate, it's very common, as we were talking about on the podcast this morning. I'm going to pull up a graphic that you created we use a lot. It's very common for people to be on the normal, on the left side of this ride option, and early on think that's just normal and not be aware of the fact that they may not always want to get the feeling of that downward gravity pull and that upward swing and that stomach turning feeling as they age. And The way on the right is kind of how we view money. It's the same energy, just producing a more efficient result. It's interesting, Nate. I don't know about you, but all my middle school principal years, we would go to Six Flags as our big trip at the end of the year. And when that began, I was around 30. And man, I would ride every one of those rides. And I would think, besides the spinning ones, can't do the spinning ones, but any of the roller coasters up and down, the back and forth, and absolutely loved it. Didn't notice anything negative about it. Each year that I got through my principal years, especially the last few when I was 37, 38, 39, I started noticing there was a pull or grab or drag on me on those roller coaster rides that I did not like. That I had to choose which one I really wanted to ride, and I stayed off the other ones. And I think that's how finances work a lot in people's life also, is they don't know what roller coaster they're on and the impact it's having.
Yeah, and also something that is left out of a lot of these conversations around having traditional retirement accounts and things like that is not only do you ride this roller coaster of emotions from the highs and the lows, but you also don't fully know what is yours when it comes to that statement, because we are creating on a pre-tax strategy. We are effectively creating an unknown debt to the government to be determined by them at a later date, because we're going to be taxed at income, not at investment rates. And we don't know what the taxes are going to be in the future. So that's why we are strong proponents of post-tax type strategies, whatever that looks like for you, simply because you're getting the uncertainties of life out of the way in those later years when you need more certainty in your life. When I look at my whole life policy statement, one, I never get a statement from the insurance company that says we had a down year and here's the result. You have less money than you did the year before.
Then you put in. Yep.
Two, I know that death benefit number is a guaranteed number that gets kept in my family. I know that the cash value, which is the equity, that's the portion of the death benefit that is recognized as money that we can use in our life right now. I know that by contract, that money is money I have access to put to work in different areas of my life.
Yeah, Nate, that brings a very vital piece to why we love teaching this. And if you come to Peter's perspective, you're going to hear this throughout. We are not telling you that you have to pick whole life insurance over your retirement plan, that you have to pick whole life insurance over a great rate of return in an investment. What we are saying is what Nelson said in Becoming Your Own Banker. The process of banking goes on forever, which certainly can include investments. But Nate, I want to zoom out. 70 to 80% of the people that we work with at first, which is where we were when we started, all that tax conversation that you just had that makes sense to me and you and a lot of our clients that have been doing it for a while, it flew right over mine and your head in some way or another 8 to 10 years ago. And so at a simple level, if somebody would have said to me and you, Nate, hey, you can work the same amount of effort you already are applying and get a better, more efficient peace of mind result, or said another way, you can keep more of what you earn so that you can continue to get better at learning how to earn more with what you keep. That really sums it up. And it doesn't create this competition that the general marketing scheme by the big three banks, Wall Street and IRS have created. And I think, Nate, while we love the Pizza and Perspectives and the in-person events, is because we get to hear our clients or our members' stories. And we also get to see others who are beginning their journey, if you will, of rethinking their thinking. And they get to ask questions. And they get to go, what practically made sense to you finally that allowed you to start adding this into your approach?
Well, in this picture for those of y'all who can't see it, we're looking at a roller coaster on one side, which we call normal. The roller coaster goes up and down, and then we've got IBC on the other side, and it's a rocket ship with an upward trajectory. So the reality is, we have people who are still in both camps, so to speak, in their life. They still have the normal 401k that they're operating with, but they also have IBC that they're implementing simultaneously. And so when you are working in both camps, those roller coaster moments don't seem so hectic anymore because you've got that certainty that you started building in for yourself. And one of the things that Brock talked about, and we talk about often, is this idea of permission to spend, which is a book written by Tom Wall, where he lays out very eloquently and very powerfully what a whole life policy can do in the life of a retiree as a volatility buffer.
Mm. So we'll touch on that real quick. And I think this will help anybody that's the number of conversations, Nate, that you and I have with people who go, I've been watching what y'all been talking about, but I've been too scared may not be the right word, but we've heard that too. I've been too worried to really reach out because I feel like I'm committing to something I don't understand. And we want to flip that on its head. We want to be sure that you are confident in why whole life insurance can help what you're already doing be more effective, create more peace of mind, create more certainty. And so that volatility buffer you're talking about, Nate, at a high level, Nate and I could do all of our retirement planning in the traditional sense of qualified plans. We say 401k because that's what most people know, but it could be a 403b, teacher retirement system, all kinds of different, qualified plans. And Nate could retire a year before me. And if he's pulling all of his income percentage-wise off of the accumulated assets that are coming through the market, he could live a great life where his assets only go up enough that he can retire in a way where he never experiences anything chaotic. I could retire a year later and experience a down year and pull off of that in that down year and never recover and be out of money in a couple of years. That is what we're talking about with the roller coaster. So I think something we didn't do well early on, Nate, and it wasn't because we weren't trying to do well, it's just we didn't know what we didn't know, is that articulating, explaining, discussing how this approach to life, no matter where you are in your financial steps, whether you have no savings, whether you don't know how to keep your money, whether you've got a large accumulation of savings in different accounts, whether you're somewhere in between, Nelson's message in Becoming Your Own Banker and sound money thinking can positively impact any household if they're willing to apply it. And Nate, I want you to talk to this reality of, even if you're not saving any money, even if you don't have a retirement plan, even if you're like, there's no way I can afford to pay for premiums for a whole life policy, how would you go back and coach yourself up knowing what you know now at a very simplistic, high level to counter that thought process and almost implore you to look at it differently?
Well, the thing that we always want to make sure is that our cash flow is in alignment with our values and things that we love and want to be a part of. And I think that's important. That's an important question a lot of people don't really ask often, is the places that I'm sending money to right now, are they really in alignment with who I am? Because you and I both, had this conversation early on and continue to have this conversation. We feel like our money is more in alignment with who we are today than ever before.
Yeah.
And so alignment of cash flow is going to be really important. Whether you start a whole life policy or not, one of the things that also is really important is understanding your lifetime economic value is a real number, whether you plan for it or not. And
now you just threw out a very fancy word that most people don't know.
yeah, so
Combinations.
lifetime economic value is essentially what the insurance company would determine how much death benefit you would qualify for. And just for easy numbers, you would multiply your income times your number of working years that you have left. And that's roughly what they're going to be willing to insure you for, which pushes back on a common misconception with life insurance. Most people believe they can buy as much life insurance as they can afford. That is not true. You can only buy as much life insurance as the insurance company is willing to offer you. And so they use actuarial science to determine what that number is, and that represents your future value of your present cash flow.
Yeah. So Nate, in Becoming Your Own Banker, because we're doing a Becoming Your Own Banker walkthrough where we're going through every section on our podcast, Cash Flow Legends. And we just recorded one this morning. We're ahead a couple of weeks or behind, however you want to think about that. It's not going live as soon as we record it, so it'll be a couple of weeks. I was reminded again of how important it is to read Becoming Your Own Banker if you're at all interested in this. And it starts with this important piece that this is about the power of dividend paying whole life insurance and how one finances the things of life. The first page also says it can include investments and the things of life, but it is about how one finances the things of life. And Nate, if I could go back and coach me and you up, this is what I would say to anybody listening that's new to this. What is the negative or what is the downside of exploring this? And I would get real clear on the answer to that 8 years ago when we were just starting. Because what I could now tell you is I learned something new. Even if I never changed my behavior, my mindset, where my dollars flowed. But what you and I have learned over and over again is when you're willing to, as Nelson said, rethink your thinking, this creativity, this imagination, this excitement starts taking over because people begin to realize, what do they begin to realize, Nate?
They begin to realize a lot of things. They
Yeah.
begin to see inefficiencies in their life.
Mm.
They start to understand what the problem really is, and it's that someone is always controlling the banking function in your life. It's going to be you or it's going to be somebody else. But the process of banking is going to go on no matter what. No matter what happens in life, there's always going to be a banking process, and someone is always going to be benefiting from that process. You know, when you when you were talking about God, dadgummit, I just
Lose
lost
it?
that thought. I might get it back.
That's okay.
We'll see.
One of the most important things, and Nate, if I were to say what we've been,
I know what it was now. So
welcome
when
to
you're
being partners with Nate.
yeah. So when you were talking about learning, leaning in, exploring,
Yes.
what's the worst case scenario? The funny thing is I know when you and I first heard about Dave Ramsey and the things that he was talking about, we didn't have to go through this big process of thinking, hey, what's the worst case scenario for me to learn more about this? It was almost more of like an instinct of like, all right, he's talking about something that may have some value. I need to find out more about that.
Yeah.
And so you don't have to make this massive commitment to yourself to start leaning in and learning about this stuff. It's really an easy decision. Do I want to know more about what they're talking about, or do I want to choose to ignore that? But there's not a huge decision making process that has to take place just to learn.
All right, Nate. So let's touch on that for just a second. So Nelson says in Becoming Your Own Banker, first of all, that this is a workbook. So you can go to our website. You don't want to ever talk to us until you got all your questions together. This is the best piece of advice I can give anybody. Go to our website, buy Becoming Your Own Banker. Get it in your house and ask your spouse to go on a journey with you of learning something new. Because you're not going to be able to explain it because you're still learning. They're not going to have any context and go, if this could make what we're already doing better, create more peace of mind, more certainty, more control, more clarity, would we be willing to explore it? If they say yes, great. Go through the book and read it in the way that we put on the inside first page, because that really gets your wheels to turning. Have a piece of paper beside you and write down the questions that come up as you're reading it fairly quickly. Don't get bogged down into the details, just real quickly. And then spend time discussing with your spouse or loved one or family what your current knowledge is to be able to answer that question. So, what does it mean to control the banking process? That sounds real scary. It sounds real, for me, Nate, I was like, what the heck does that mean? I don't understand that. But if somebody would say to me then, it just means money's flowing in and out of your life. Somebody's going to benefit from it. Somebody's going to control it. Somebody's going to set the rules. You can, or somebody else can. When I hear the word cash flow now, Nate, I know that means extra money on top of living life that I can save. But what I also know, Nate, is that cash flow can be created with your current income production ability just by having somebody else ask you different questions about how money's flowing through your life. So we're not saying you got to go make more money. We're actually saying often, Nate, that if you learn this on the right, what infinite banking really does with where you put your money first, it will increase your ability to get more benefit out of the dollars you're already earning. And those things are where we really spend a lot of time in person discussing. And the only thing it's going to cost you, let's think about real cost, Nate, is $20 or $25 to buy the book. That's the only thing it's going to cost you. Everything else is going to be your time and energy. And what I love about this is it's going to bring you to the forefront of where's my energy going currently. Because the roller coaster is all good till it isn't. The roller coaster, I might want to stay on my whole life. I might be that 80, 90-year-old that just loves riding a roller coaster forever. But what if I want to get off? Can I? Brock brought up a great point this morning, Nate. He said, what if you want to volunteer at church for a position that's paid and you want to volunteer and your income continues to come in off of your assets and what you know about money in a way that you can tell the church, I don't want to be paid. I want you to redirect that money somewhere else. I am excited about doing this. I control my time, my energy, my effort, and where I put it. And this is what I'm committed to for the next year. Now, that's really what understanding money gets us to. And that's really what we spend a lot of time getting to do and try to get better at, Nate, because we're still learning every day how we can ask better questions to show up for us, for our members, and go, what does it look like when you get off the roller coaster ride? And Nate, the cool thing is when you ask those questions, people's eyes start lighting up, or there's an awkward pause. They light up because they go, I'm thinking about money propelling what matters to me most. Or they pause because they go, I've never thought about that before. And then you get to go, well, why haven't you? And Nate, why don't people normally think about that? What's a reason or two that you hear often where they go, I've never been asked that question?
Because everybody's conditioned to believe that they're going to work till they're 65 or 70, for this magical age where one day they can start to slow down. And kind of what you were talking about earlier is when you start to create more efficient cash flow, you don't have to slow down, but you do take some pressure off yourself from having to get out there and bust it, every day, so to speak. So, most people just assume that their working years are up to 65 or 70 because that's what they see everybody else doing, and that's what they've been told. And also, they've been given rules around their money as far as when they can access it.
And one of the things that Brock said that you'll hear on another podcast if you listen to it or later is he said, we assume that we're going to make it to a certain age and we're going to have all of our choices, all of our facilities intact. But he was talking to a 68-year-old who is a go-getter, who is very successful, who you would never know 68. And he said, I've got 15 plus buddies, I think he said 18, that did not get to choose what retirement looked like for them because of some version of a medical event that they did not know was going to occur, like dementia or, some other thing that took away those years that they've been working so hard to get to. And so it's not ever fun to think about those things, Nate, but we were equating it to the snowstorm we've been having, not having the one we had with the ice and the freezing in our area. And nobody ever says, I'm going to go buy a generator in the middle of the summer because there's a snowstorm coming. But everybody that has the generator and knows the plan for when the snowstorm comes in and when electricity is lost always seems to be living with more contentment and peace of mind than those who are frantically, I'm one of them, running to the store to get a generator and there aren't any. And if I were to say what we spend the most time doing with our members across all states almost and all conversations and ages, is getting real clear on helping them understand what peace of mind means today, tomorrow, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years from now, and most importantly, the flexibility to adjust when life changes. Because it's going to change, isn't it, Nate? There's no
Sure.
straight line.
For sure. Well, and you think about the thought process that goes into purchasing a generator to begin with. People don't buy generators because it's going to put cash in their pocket. They buy it for convenience and for comfort. They buy it in the event when things don't work out the way they thought they were going to work out. And so if we're talking about this roller coaster, I mean, if you're in the market, you're going to have down years. Like it's like it's pretty much a guarantee that you're going to have down years if you're in the market. So if you know that, especially in retirement years, when you're faced with this risk of a sequence of returns and trying to make sure that you're not drawing off your, well, you've got a generator that kicks in, so to speak.
Yeah, it's got one of those auto switches on it.
Yeah, that kicks in on those down years so that you're not sitting in the dark.
That's exactly right. You're not freezing your tail off because the heat's not running. Or, and you have a place for your loved ones to come because you can take care of them because you have planned. And this is really, Nate, if I could sum it up in one sentence to really simplify it, all the energy and effort you're already using, if it could be redirected to create a better result, why wouldn't you explore? And better results different for everybody. Nate, ours has evolved 8 years in, because we've gained more peace of mind. We've gained more certainty and control. Have we figured it all out? No. Do we still feel like there's a long ways to go? Yes, that is man's nature, is for there to be friction in creating value in this world. I mean, it's scriptural. We're going to toil in the earth. We're going to labor. So that's going to be there. But as we go through that, probably one of my favorite things that we get to do, Nate, when we meet with people in person and Pizza Perspective, is encourage people to keep leaning into what peace of mind really means for them.
Yep.
And I know at 44, peace of mind to me is not the Texas Giant anymore. It was definitely at 24 and at 14 and maybe at 34. But at 44, I think I'll be okay if I never ride the Texas Giant again. I may get a wild hair, if I end up there before too long. But you get the point, is that we don't have to be on the roller coaster ride. And if we want to get off of it, we want to be able to stop the ride and get off of it whenever we want to. Fully stopped, not jumping while the thing's still moving, trying to figure out how we're going to survive. So, Pizza in Perspective, this Saturday, the workshop. We've got 12, 13 spots remaining. We only have about 20 to 25 because we want it to be personal. If we have somebody new there that hasn't been in or around our community before, we want them to be sure they're comfortable. We'll feed you Pietro's Pizza around 11:30. That doesn't cost you anything other than your commitment and willingness to show up and be open-minded. That's it. If you want to wait to ask your questions there, great. You can always send us questions here. You can go get Becoming Your Own Banker. That's the foundation of everything we teach. But we confidently know, Nate, that we can bring value to anybody who's wanting to bring more value to themselves than anything else. And that's what we look forward to. So hope to see you this Saturday, and hope you have a great day. If you watch this later, hope it brings value to you. If you watched it now, thanks for being here. See you.